Hi dear students, how are you? I hope you're fine. Today we're gonna talk about another topic for the macroeconomics, so let's start. We are here talking about the inflation. What does it mean, inflation? All of us experience something called inflation in our lives. So, inflation happens when the prices of goods and services rise over time. So, when prices of the most and not just two or three or just some goods or services, no, most of goods and services in the economy, when their price rises up, what happens? This is called inflation. When they are falling, the opposite here is called deflation. So the inflation rate is what? Is the percentage, I'm talking about the percentage here, that increase here in the average level of prices of the prices of most of the goods. Effects of inflation. Yes, we have effects of inflation on economy. Like what? When the inflation rate reaches an extremely high level, what do you think? The economy will tend to function poorly or actively? Of course, poorly. Why? Because we don't have money to afford, we can afford the prices of the inflation. So the purchasing power means the power of people to, or the ability for them to buy things. So of money erodes here quickly, which forces people to spend their money as soon as they receive it. So as soon as I receive my salary, I will spend it on the same goods that I used to do or to purchase before, but my money will be here finished very early. So the international economy, we have here something called the international economy. So an economy which has extensive trading and financial relationships with other countries or other national economies. This is called what? This is called open economy. While an economy with no relationships is called what? The opposite here is closed economy. So international trading, when I'm doing international trading and borrowing relationships, can transmit here business cycles from one country to another. So the international economy here, the trading and borrowing here of okay. What about the exports and imports? The trading between here countries is through exports and imports. We all know what does it mean, exports and imports. Exports here are goods and services which are produced, for example, here in Canada, and we can say in Egypt, and consumed where abroad. So I'm doing here the goods and services, I'm producing them, and then I'm going to export them to another country to be consumed with other nations. Canadian imports, for example, are goods and services produced here abroad and consumed in Canada. So, or in the in any other country, for example, if we are talking about Canada, so this is for Canada. Trade imbalances. What does it mean, trade imbalances? Here it's the opposite of balance, of course. So I'm having here something which is not stable. So trade imbalances, I'm having something called, this is very important, surplus or deficit. So when I'm asking you, for example, in the exam, give me here examples for the trade imbalances, or define the trade imbalances, or discuss the trade imbalances. I have to know that the trade imbalances here, I'm talking about trade surplus or trade deficit. So trade surplus here, which means exports here exceeds imports, of course. So I'm having here trade surplus. What about here trade deficit? I'm having here the imports exceed the exports. So what I'm taking from outside the country exceeds the goods and the goods taken from my country to another country. So, what about the exchange rate? The exchange rate here, I'm talking about the trade balance is affected by what? The exchange rate. Of course, we all saw what happened with dollars this time. The amount here, I'm talking here about an example of Canadian, the amount of Canadian dollars that can be purchased with a unit of a foreign currency. So the exchange rate I'm talking about here, for example, the Canadian dollars, or for example, the Egyptian pounds, the amount of the Egyptian pound that can be purchased with a unit of a foreign currency, for example, dollars, for example, yen, or any other currency. Macroeconomic policy, I'm having here something called macroeconomic policy. A nation's economy performance depends on what? So, as a nation, our economy here depends on what? Or the performance of our economy here depends on what? The natural and human resources. What natural do you have in your country? Are you having more and more agriculture spaces? So you're gonna here, if you're having a lot and a lot of land, and you can grow so you can grow crops, so you can here use the natural here and the natural resources for doing agriculture. For example, human resources also, capital stock, how much money or the capital do you have in your country, so you can have large here large year programs you can do or apply. You can use the technology. Do you have from the technology enough to use the technological here economic choices made by citizens? Of course, the economic choices made by citizens, they want to do what? They want to work in the agriculture or in the technological, or they want to work in factories, or what? Or also we are having macroeconomic policies of the government. Of course, here the government has also some control on the nation's economic performance. So here the government can here decide which here category I will depend on, or which here performance I'm going to be here, agriculture economy or technological economy, or what. So the macroeconomic policies I'm talking about, this is very important. I'm talking about two important policies. I'm talking about fiscal policy and monetary policy. When I talk about fiscal policy, government spending and taxation at different government levels. So here the government spending and taxation, the taxes, okay, at different government levels. What about the monetary policy? The central bank's control of short-term interest rates and the money supply. So we have here difference between the fiscal policy, which is the government, it's the government spending, what the government will spend on, and taxation, the taxes it will put on people at different here government levels. Monetary policy, the central bank's control of short-term interest rates and the money supply. What about the budget deficit? The budget deficit, when the economy is affected, when there are large budget deficits, the excess of government spending over tax collection. So let's talk about this in more details. What does it mean, budget deficit? What does the government